Hey there, how y'all folks doing this fine day? It's Gator here at the cable company. I'm so glad you stopped in to see me today. Today we're going to go over the White House and the creation of it and the Oval Office. I hope you stick around until the end. I hope you enjoy it, okay? Thank you for stopping by. The Oval Office is the formal working space of the President of the United States, part of the Executive Office of the President of the United States. It is in the West Wing of the White House in Washington, D.C. This is President Joe Biden on the night of his inauguration in 2021. This is President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris in the Oval Office in 2021. This is the President's House, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. George Washington, his bow window, not depicted, is echoed in the shape of an Oval Office. Yellow Oval Room, about 1868, used as President Andrew Johnson's private office. That's pretty cool. The Yellow Oval Room has President Grover Cleveland's private office in 1886. It stands before the window. The Yellow Oval Room has President Franklin D. Roosevelt's private office in 1933. Theodore Roosevelt's executive office and cabinet room in 1904. This is Taft's Oval Office, completed in 1909, nearly identical in size to the modern office. It was damaged by fire in 1929 and demolished. The exterior of the West Wing in 1910, showing the curve of the Taft Oval Office. West Wing expansion in 1934. Exterior of the Oval Office from the South Lawn, July 15, 2006. The location of the Oval Office in the West Wing. Franklin D. Roosevelt in the newly completed modern Oval Office, December 31st, 1934. Construction of the White House began at noon on October 13, 1792, with the laying of the cornerstone. The main residence and foundations of the house were built largely by both enslaved and free African American laborers and employed Europeans. Much of the other work of the house was done by immigrants, many of whom had not yet obtained citizenship, including the sandstone walls, which were erected by Scottish immigrants, the high relief rows and the garland decorations above the north entrance, and the first scale pattern beneath the pediments of the window hoods. There are conflicting claims as to where the sandstone used in the construction of the White House originated. Some reports suggested the sandstone from the Croston Islands of Brock, specifically the quarry whose stone was used to build the ancient palace in Split was used in the building original construction. However, researchers believe limestone from the island was used in the 1902 renovations and not the original construction. Others suggest the original sandstone simply came from Aquia Creek in Stamford County, Virginia, since importation of the stone at the time would have proved too costly. The initial construction took place over a period of 8 years at the reported cost of $232,371,000, equivalent to $4,007,000 in 2022. Although not yet completed, the White House was ready for occupancy November the 1st, 1800, due in part to the material and labor shortages. Pierre Charles L'Enfant's plan for a grand palace was 5 times larger than the house that was eventually built. The finished structure contained only 2 main floors instead of a Plan 3, and less costly brick served as a living lining for the stone facades. When construction was finished, the porous sandstone walls were whitewashed with a mixture of lime, rice glue, casing, and lead, giving the house its familiar color and name. Installed in 1934, includes elements of the seal of the President of the United States. Caroline Kennedy and Carrie Kennedy beneath the resolute desk in 1963. Note the Truman carpet. President Henry Truman receiving a marble bust on Simon Boulevard from the Venezuelan delegation December 27, 1946. President Barack Obama with Oval Office artwork September 28, 2012. George Washington, 1823, by Rembrandt Peale. City of Washington from Beyond the Navy Yard, 1833, by George Cook. Eastport and Passamaquoddy Bay, by Victor D. Gralley. Andrew Jackson, 1845, by Thomas Sully. Waiting for the Hour, 1863, by William Tolman Carlton. Passing the Outpost, 1881, by Alfred Wordsworth Thompson. The Bronco Buster, 1895, by Friedrich Remington. Abraham Lincoln, 1915, by George Story. The Avenue in the Rain, 1917, by Child Hanson. Franklin D. Roosevelt, 1935, by Frank O. Salisbury. The building was originally variously referred to as the President's Palace, the Presidential Mansion, or the President's House. The earliest evidence of the public calling it the White House was recorded in 1811. A myth emerged that during the rebuilding of the structure after the burning of Washington, white paint was applied to mask the burn damage it had suffered, giving the building its namesake. The name Executive Mansion was used in official context until President Theodore Roosevelt established the White House as its formal name in 1901 via executive order. The current letterhead wording and arrangement of the White House with the word Washington centered beneath it dates to the administration of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Although the structure was not completed until some years after the presidency of George Washington, there is speculation that the name of the traditional residence of the President of the United States may have been derived from Martha Washington's home, White House Plantation in Virginia, where the nation's first president courted the First Lady in the mid-18th century. Early use, 1814, burning and reconstruction. On Saturday, November 1st, 1800, John Adams became the first president to take residence in the building. The next day he wrote his wife Abigail, "I pray heaven to bestow the best of blessings on this house and all that shall hereafter inhabit it. May none but honest and wise men ever rule under this roof." President Franklin D. Roosevelt had Adams' blessing carved into the mantel in the state dining room. Adams lived in the house only briefly before Thomas Jefferson moved in to the Pleasant Country residence in 1801, despite his complaints that the house was too big enough for 2 emperors, 1 pope, and a Grand Lama in the bargain. Jefferson considered how the White House might be added to with Benjamin Henry Latrobe. He helped lay out the design for the east and west colonnades, small wings, and helped conceal the domestic operations of laundry and stable and storage. Today, Jefferson's colonnades linked the residence with the east and west wings. In 1814, during the War of 1812, the White House was burnt by British forces during the burning of Washington, in retaliation for acts of destruction by American troops in the Candadas. Much of Washington was affected by these fires as well. Only the exterior walls remained, and they had to be torn down and mostly reconstructed because of the weakening from the fire and subsequent exposure to the elements, except for portions of the south wall. Of numerous objects taken from the White House when it was sacked by the British, only 3 have been recovered. White House employees and slaves rescued a copy of the Landon portrait, and in 1939 a Canadian man returned a jewelry box to President Franklin Roosevelt, claiming that his grandfather had taken it from Washington. In the same year, a medicine chest that had belonged to President Madison was returned by the descendants of a Royal Navy officer. Some observers alleged that most of the spoils of the war taken during the sack were lost when a convoy of British ships led by HMS Phantom sank en route to Halifax off Prospect during a storm on the night on November 24, 1814, even though Phantom had no involvement in that action. After the fire, President James Madison resided in the Octagon House from 1814 to 1815, and then in the 7th building from 1815 to the end of his term. Meanwhile, both Hoban and Latrobe contributed to the design and oversight of the reconstruction, which lasted from 1815 until 1817. The South Portico was constructed in 1824 during the James Monroe administration. The North Portico was built in 1830, though Latrobe proposed similar portfolio before the fire in 1814. Both porticos were built and designed by Hoban. The Oval Office has become associated in America's minds with the presidency itself through memorial images, such as a young John F. Kennedy Jr. peering through the front panel of his father's desk. President Richard Nixon speaking by telephone with the Apollo 11 astronauts during their moonwalk, and Carter bringing her Siamese cat Misty, Markley Yin Yang to brighten her father, President Jimmy Carter's day. Several presidents have addressed the nation from the Oval Office on occasion. Examples include Kennedy presenting news of the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, Nixon announcing his resignation from the office, Ronald Reagan following the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster in 1986, and George W. Bush in the wake of the September 11 attacks in 2001. The Oval Room has 3 large south-facing windows, in front of which the President's desk traditionally stands, and a fireplace at the north end. 2 built-in bookcases are recessed in the western wall. There are 4 doors. The east door opens to the rose garden. The west door leads to a private study and the dining room. The northwest door opens into the main corridor of the West Wing, and the northeast doors open into the office of the President's secretary. The President generally decorate the office to suit their own personal taste, choosing furniture and drapery and often commissioning oval carpets. Artwork is selected from the White House collection or borrowed from museums for the President's term. The White House was not ready for occupancy until 1800. George Washington never occupied the White House. He spent most of his presidency in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, which served as the temporary national capital for 10 years from 1790 to 1800 while Washington, D.C., a new city, was under construction. In 1790, Washington built a large two-story semicircular addition to the rear of the President's house in Philadelphia, creating a ceremonial space in which the public would meet the President. Standing before the three windows of his bow window, he formally received guests for his Tuesday afternoon audience, delegations from Congress and foreign dignitaries, and the general public at open house on New Year's Day, the 4th of July, and his birthday. President John Adams occupied the Philadelphia mansion from March 1797 and used the bow window in the same manner as his predecessor. The Oval Office floor has been replaced several times, most recently during the administration of George W. Bush. John F. Kennedy's children visit the Oval Office. President Richard M. Nixon and Bob Hope play golf in the Oval Office. View from above, President George W. Bush seated at lower left holds meeting. Traditional handshake. Photo seated in front of the fireplace, President G.W. Bush. Panoramic view of the Oval Office, January 26, 2017. President Donald Trump is seated at the Resolute desk. 1909 postcard showing the first Oval Office. That's pretty cool. President Theodore Roosevelt's private desk in the White House. This is in 1905. Woodrow Wilson at his desk in the Oval Office in 1913. Mr. Harding's desk is the Executive Office, Oval Office desk of the late President Warden G. Harding. Calvin Coolidge, half-length portrait, seated at the desk in the Oval Office, facing front. Seen in the private office of President Hoover, showing the effects of the fire which practically destroyed the Executive Office. Franklin Roosevelt at the desk in the Oval Office with Group, Washington, D.C. I know that guy right there. He looks familiar. President Roosevelt in Executive Office. Recreation of the Oval Office and decorated by Franklin D. Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States from 1933 to 1945. Reenacted Oval Office at Harry Truman's Presidential Library in Independence, Missouri. President Eisenhower signs H.R. 9757, an act to amend the Atomic Energy Act of 1946. Statue of Abraham Lincoln, seated in Newark, New Jersey. View of the HMS Resolute desk in the newly redecorated Oval Office of the White House with the late President John F. Kennedy. President Lyndon B. Johnson watching TV in the Oval Office. Oval Office during the presidency of Gerald R. Ford. Oval Office tall case clock, 1795 to 1805 by John Seymour, cropped from the image below. Okay, Oval Office. Jimmy Carter Library and Museum. President Ronald Reagan working at his desk in the Oval Office in July 15, 1988. Recreation of the Oval Office used during Reagan's presidency. President Bush meets with Secretary Dick Cheney, General Colin Powell, General Scott Crowcroft, Governor Sununu, and so on. The replica office of the George Bush Presidential Library and Museum, White House Oval Office during the administration of Bill Clinton, William J. Clinton Presidential Library, Oval Office from Paranormal at White House Government. President George W. Bush meets with Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper in the Oval Office during July 6, 2006. Barack Obama. President Barack Obama edits his remarks in the Oval Office prior to making a televised statement detailing the mission against Osama bin Laden. President Barack Obama meets with Senator John McCain, Arizona, in the Oval Office, Republican, February 2nd, 2011. United States President Barack Obama talks on the telephone with Representative John Boehner, Speaker of the House. This is in the Oval Office. Trump, Oval Office 2017, Working Office of the President of the United States. President Donald J. Trump and First Lady Melania Trump with Andrzej Duda, President of the Republic of Poland, and his wife. President Joe Biden poses with the Biden family dogs, Champ and Major, Tuesday, February 9th, 2021, in the Oval Office of the White House. Pretty dogs. This morning I met with a group of Democratic senators to discuss the American Rescue Plan and how to emerge from the crisis. Sunday I'm doing a live, so come on and join us and meet my little gnome, okay? This is way too cool, okay? And the Way Too Cool X named him. He's got a great channel, great guy, and he named my little guy. And this is the guy we try to hang, okay? My little buddy right here, we try to hang him, and that's me. I'm gonna hang him. If you don't get the answers right, and all the answers are real easy, it's just about America, about the Constitution. We learn a little something as we do it, and we have fun doing it. And your job is to try to stop me from hanging my poor little buddy. I get a little bloodthirsty all of a sudden. Just come and check me out. You'll see what I'm talking about. All right, bye-bye for now. Come on back and see me. Hit that like button if you liked it. If you connect to me, I'll connect back. I love to check out other people's content. Come on and see me now, okay? Bye-bye.